feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Ooh, we are chasing Rob Manfred's job tonight here at Chasing the Pennant. I'm your host, Shane, and I'm joined by 4 of my 6 other co-hosts. I have Bork, who just got off the phone with Jamie Baskow. How you doing, Bork?
Good podcast, not phone, but yeah.
Same thing. Correct.
On
me
the
3
phone
seconds
doing a
into the show.
podcast.
Doing well. It was nice. It was nice getting to talk about something that's more positive before talking about the negative in the NHL. So it was definitely nice to start with the positive. So,
Well, that's good. We have nothing good to say on this podcast. Sorry to bring your night back down. Then I have Biscuit. Biscuit, how are you, man?
Sad, disappointed, angry. We'll get into it.
All the emotions. All the things. He's feeling everything.
Looking forward to that.
Then I have Rob, who gave me the most Rob answer to a question before we started recording ever. How are you, sir?
Well, first off, I'm drawing blanks. I don't even remember what you're talking about. And second
You're
off,
moving into a home.
yeah.
Not like a group home or a halfway house, by the way, like a home of your own.
Yeah. Anyway, I just had a mint cookies and cream protein milkshake, and now I'm drinking a coffee, so my toilet is going to get destroyed after this podcast.
Most eligible bachelor on Tinder, everyone. That's disgusting. But good for you, man. Way to be honest. That's what this podcast is about. Honesty, transparency, and we're going to bring it tonight. And then our last one, who actually ushered the thought of this podcast. This is not one of our normal. We know we've changed this up a lot. We've gone from 3 a week to, 1 every 3 weeks to, we think, 2 a week. But this is a bonus pod, and this is because we needed to vent, all of us, outside of just our group chat. And that is Andrew who brought this to us. Andrew, how are you?
I've been better. I let my emotions ride on the sports world, and these past few weeks have just not been good. And my alma mater basketball team is banned from the 2021 postseason. Our football coach did something dumb yesterday, so
He's an idiot.
now our all-star running back is like all over him. So that football team's now a mess. A certain basketball player is trying to ruin the comeback for the NBA.
Flat earthers, man. God.
And then, obviously, baseball is more than a mess than ever. So, really, there's nothing positive in the sports world right now. So, I'm kind of a mess myself now. So,
This is the
I've
end
been
of
better.
days. Yeah, this is the end of days. For everyone who is looking for something else to do, play poker. I play poker. I gladly play poker with you. We can even socially distance that way. You can wear gloves if you want. I'm not picky. Let's play cards. I need something to gamble on. Anything. Dice, too. That works. Degenerates, always degenerates. But let's get into everything tonight, because baseball has, I think, embarrassed itself more by the day, by the minute, perhaps. It is unbelievable. I have never seen a single, we talk about it a lot in all of our shows, and we always have in all of our AMYP podcast things. We've talked about it a lot, how much commissioners are hated. Has there ever been a commissioner you guys can think of that has been hated more than what Rob Manfred is?
hell no.
Absolutely not.
No.
Nope. Not right now. I used to think that amount of hate was out there for Roger Goodell and at times Gary Bettman. That comes nothing close to the amount of vitriol towards Rob Manfred, which, by the way, is very, very justified.
See, it's insane because we talk about Goodell and we think that he's, kind of a tone deaf, just money hungry guy. And in part he is, but he's been at least fairly responsive. He's just not always maximized his product. Not that he needed to. It owns a day of the week. We've talked about that a lot. Bettman, I think, is a moron, but I don't think he's villainous by any stretch. I think he just isn't the best businessman for this era of the world to maximize what hockey could be, which is now confidently at least the third most popular of the core four, because baseball is being freaking ruined by Manfred. This guy has taken an opportunity that could have propelled baseball right back up to the true we are America's game. Well, we're not anymore. That's long gone. Not this America. That's football. And I am a baseball guy through and through, but Manfred has completely taken this away. Biscuit, you were incredibly animated on the last podcast as we got into some of this Rob Manfred thing. So some of the actually, I guess you weren't too bad on the steroid era, but we can get into stuff like that later. But if you were to sit there and have a conversation right now with Rob Manfred, what are some of the things that you would say?
I would start off by just saying why. Why are you doing this? Why are you elongating this process even further? Well, we know why you're trying to do that. But it's just so infuriating. I would just say to him to buck up, get it the fuck done. You have millions and millions of fans out there just clamoring for this season to start. And it's so evident with everyone. Like, the fans are upset. The players are just downright angry. I've never seen so many emotions being expressed on Twitter by players. I wrote a list down earlier. I saw Harper, Lindor, Scherzer, Alonso. I mean, even Mike Trout. Like, I think when you know something's wrong when Trout is speaking up, because for as much of a star as he is in baseball, I don't think he's someone who really goes out of his way to speak on the current issues as much as you'd expect someone with as much star power to do. But it's just so disappointing. And with the news that came out yesterday, I become more and more pessimistic throughout the day, Shane. I really do.
I'm concerned genuinely concerned at this point now. Like, in previous podcasts, I've jokingly said, I don't know how we recover. I don't know how we recover. I genuinely do not know how you bring back the casual fan. Diehards are we're going to watch because it's what we love when the game does inevitably come back. But there's a resentment here that doesn't really go away. You know, when I don't remember which one of us on the show the other night had set up, it's at what point can we move on and get another commissioner, get another face and voice to kind of steer this ship and not fuck it up. This is brutal, man. And now we're hearing too, there was a report that came out that 6 to 8 of the owners and or general managers said, we don't need the season. Just don't play then. At this point, let's just not play. And the fact that they're so willing to do that, and they're so willing to say, we don't care that we're going to lose fans. We don't care who's not going to come back. They're so tone deaf. So tone deaf. Baseball as a whole, almost every organization has gone up by the billions in the last half decade alone. They have the fucking money. They absolutely have the money. They can make this work. This year, meeting the players' very generous offering throughout the entire negotiation process, and we would have had baseball by now. We wouldn't be talking so negatively about something that we love. And baseball's found a way to fuck that up through greed. It's impossible. Andrew, you were the one who steered this ship for this episode, man. What would you say right now to Manfred?
I'd say it's time to step down. I think he's done enough to the sport. I think, like you said, Shane, where do you go from here and how do you fix it? I think that's the only answer, is you need a new commissioner here to fix it. Like, I think he's dug the sport in that big of a hole. I mean, because you look at the guys that are in the sport today. I mean, all the big names are young, and he doesn't know how to market them. I mean, Mike Trout's not going anywhere anytime soon. Mookie Betts isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Harper's not going anywhere. Like, they're all guys that are staying in the league, and they're not going anywhere. But you ask the average baseball fan who Mookie Betts is, I bet you they don't know who he is. Like, you ask an average fan who somebody else is, like a new upcoming player, they don't know who it is. If you ask an average football fan who Lamar Jackson is or Patrick Mahomes is, they're going to know who that is because that commissioner knows how to market the sport. And I think I said on the last podcast too, 2 years or 3 years ago, whatever it was, you had two historic franchises in the Boston Red Sox and the Dodgers going head to head in the most important series of the year, and that's the World Series. And nobody knew outside of diehard baseball fans, basically, that those two teams were going at it. And you had a chance to market the sport, as you said, Shane, and he failed to do it. And here again, you had the chance to market your sport July 4th. I mean, what better way for baseball to come back than that historic holiday? And you know what sport actually is about to ace it? And I don't know, and this just might be how desperate I am for sports, but no, it's actually the basketball tournament called the Tournament. And it's a bunch of alumni college basketball players that build their own teams. And it's every year they create a bracket. And this year, and then they play for a winning. And this year it's $2 million. The team wins. They split the $2 million between the whole team. This year they're starting July 4th and July 5th. This no-name tournament, which is on TV every year, found a way to come together, get the job done, and they're starting on July 4th while baseball will still be sitting at home doing nothing. And again, I've never been a Rob Manfred fan, and just because of all the bad rules he's already implemented. And this is, for me, I mean, I've been saying it on Twitter a lot. I've been going off on Twitter, but like this is like the last straw. Like I don't think the sport can recover too much until you get a new commissioner. And I know in '98 you had the McGuire, Sosa, Griffey to resave it. But these guys are already here. But I mean, again, Manfred just doesn't know how to market it.
That's bold. So I didn't know that anyone was going to say, I hope you step down. And there's something so final and gut punching when you hear something like that, because it's a person who's supposed to be building your product and exceeding it for years and years to come. And we're asking that person in the middle of a term to just say, I need to walk away. I've butchered this so bad. And that puts you in an even more vulnerable position as a game of baseball, because now you don't know what the hell's going on. People weren't prepared for that. This is tough. And the fact that we're asking or that you're asking, Andrew, and I think it's smart, and I think it's valid for him to say, I need to walk away without contingency plans behind him, and who knows where the hell the game would go. And we would still be confident that without a commissioner or with someone to step in for a minor period of time, we'd have more confidence in them than we do in Manfred right now. That says a lot, man. That says an absolute lot. And we don't know where this game of baseball is going to go. And I did not know about the tournament thing. That just makes me want to punch a wall right now, that a random group can just get this together. Obviously a smaller product and smaller market, and that is what it is. But damn, way to do that right. Rob, if you had to sit down with the commish right now, what would you do? What would you say?
Well, he's under contract until 2024, which is 4 years too long at this point. And I would quite frankly tell him that in no uncertain terms. I'd probably throw a few swear words in there just to add some emphasis to it and, make it a little bit more colorful and make him realize that he's just a terrible commissioner and he should really just quit his job and let somebody who's better at it run the show, because he's been in since 2015. He has done nothing other than run Major League Baseball into the ground, take what was once America's favorite pastime. Granted, it hasn't been that in quite some time, because quite frankly, the NFL passed it probably a couple decades ago. But even after that, it was our country's second favorite sport. It has been passed by basketball. I'd argue it may soon be passed by soccer and even hockey. The way it's
never
going.
Soccer, but good try.
Soccer's coming in hot right now. I mean, Kevin Durant just bought a share of the Philadelphia Union the other day.
Not a single NBA star that I would want associated with anything in this city less than Kevin Durant. Not a single one.
No
Pick
argument
the
there.
most dirtbag, dirtball human in the NBA, and I would still want them more than Kevin Durant.
No argument there.
Oh, at least he does a lot for the city.
Back to what I was saying. Rob Manfred has done a terrible job in his 5 years as commissioner of Major League Baseball. We're probably not going to have baseball this season. We may not even have it next year because of the impending CBA. And he's missing such a great opportunity with everything that's going on right now. he could have been the one to save the sports world in the summer of 2020 by just leading baseball back to, having even an abbreviated season. And that might not happen. And he had the chance to, give baseball the spotlight and kind of get it back into everyone's good graces. It's not going to happen.
Go ahead, man.
I'm sorry. I was kind of collecting my thoughts there. Go ahead.
No worries. What I was going to say is, right now, and I know there are athletes like Kyrie Irving who have a different view and a different perspective. But when you take a look at what sports do for a community and for a country at any given time, and the way that it's able to bring you together and to give another national TV spotlight every night, 7:00, and 15 different cities across America, you would have the opportunity to sit there and utilize that platform for all the things going on in this country right now. Rob Manfred took that away by being greedy in this moment. He hasn't, and Rob, you're 100% right, he has not done a single thing for the game of baseball to make this product better and to get fans more involved or more excited. This has been bad. Now, I'm not prepared to say that he inherited a perfect product by any stretch. He didn't. And baseball has, and we spoke about it before, notoriously relied on different scandals to boost the interest. There's always needed to be a villain, but the villain was never Major League Baseball. It was a handful of players. It was a team. It was a single city or a single event. Baseball's become the villain. And when the entire sport's the villain because of one human, I don't know how you recover. I just don't.
Now that you say that, I'm sorry. Now that you say that, it makes me feel like all these revelations about teams stealing signs is an effort in part by Manfred to kind of get that controversy going. To, even though it's negative attention, he's trying to get some attention for the sport of baseball, and it's backfiring.
Yeah, I've said it before. I'm a big conspiracy guy. I love to have fun with stuff like that. I don't know how much I truly believe in the conspiracies that I sit there and put out there, but the thought is fun to pick and piece around with. But it wouldn't shock me. Baseball would have had that villain this year in the Houston Astros. And Biscuit, said it perfectly that, last episode as we were sitting here talking about it, we'd be able to sit there and annihilate in every single city that Houston visited. We'd have a common villain across all of baseball. We would have the New England Patriots of baseball, and both organizations were really freaking good and probably going to be good for a really long time. That's great for the game. Baseball hasn't really had that, not since like the early to mid 90s with the Yankees. And that was just purely because they were just that damn good. Not that they were doing things illegally, although some of their players were. But still, this has been a complete and utter mess by Major League Baseball every single step of the way. And it's been selfish, and we can all see that. And that fuels a hatred for this game that, again, we keep saying, I don't know how the hell you recover from it. Bork, you were talking earlier on a podcast with Jamie, and you had said that you talked some not so great things about hockey. What were you talking about on that show?
I don't know. I said we were more positive on that show. I didn't say we talked some not so great things. I said
Gotcha.
We kept it more upbeat on that show. Then this show was going to be the more downbeat show, so I started happy and moved to sad. So.
Just sad.
Yeah, it was just some tricky wording there.
But the thing that strikes me the most is I loved, and as we pointed out last podcast, one of my favorite MLB people is Jeff Possum. But before I get to him, Middlebrooks talked about how the owners on CBS Sports, and he's quickly becoming someone I really respect because he also says it straight, a former Philly and then Red Sox, Will Middlebrooks, who got injured while here. But he's a guy that said eventually it's time for them to step up for the greater good of the game, basically paraphrasing in his short, it was like a minute, 20 seconds or so video CBS Sports put out on Twitter. And that's something that everyone's been saying for years. Nick Wright talked about it on his show, What's Right with Nick Wright, where baseball's trying to say to the Players Association, like they said in a statement, how is it not good to own a baseball team? Like, how is it now being perceived like, oh, it is a charitable, like Nick Wright even said, it's like, oh, now it's all of a sudden a charitable cause you own a baseball team. No, you own a team in a professional sports league. I don't care how profitable you are at the end, like the St. Louis Cardinals president said that's just BSing out of his you-know-what, where he said to, I don't know who it was because Nick Wright forgot even who he reported to, but he said the quote that he was talking about how they put all the money into analytics, they put it all into everything, so it's not a profitable business. Well, guess what? If you're struggling then, like I talked with on the phone to my friend the other night, you know what the easiest thing to do is? Sell some shares of your team or sell the damn team. Because if you're struggling, you can't afford the damn team. That's just the way. Like, if you were struggling before the pandemic and then you immediately started struggling right as the pandemic started and you were one of those teams complaining right away, that means you had issues at the beginning. You don't have issues now as well. You have issues now because you had issues at the forefront. So I don't understand how that's ever became a thing. But a big thing for me with Jeff Passan is he said in his article, he said, then do it twice after two quotes, because Rob obviously said the owners are 100% committed to getting baseball back on the field, which is obviously a lie because 6 to 8 owners said they have no interest in playing at this point, or they don't care if we don't, at least.
That we know of.
And then the only thing I can tell you is that the owners are committed to trying to find a way through this and get the game back on the field. That was all the same day to two different people, where Pessin put that in his article, and then right after it, he said, then do it. Because, like, you can tell he's starting to obviously get really pissed at one of the head baseball analysts out there, because when you're trying to cover a sport, you're trying to stay as positive as you can, but you can't stay positive in these times anymore, because what is there to talk about? Like, I was going to write an article for the one thing we write for about top pitchers heading into the league. What the hell is the point of doing that right now? Because there might not be a league, so what the hell is the point of telling people who the top 10 pitchers are heading into the season? So it like affects everybody in a sense, where it just, at this point, I normally don't go on this big of a rant, as people know, so you can tell how annoyed I am. It's something that just ticks me off. And like the CBS Sports guy said, Jim Bowden, this is just a stall tactic, and Andrew talked about it too, and I know he wrote about it in the one article I read that he did, that this is just a stall tactic because you can't implement a 50-game season, a 40 to 52-game season. Now you would look like a doofus. You would look like the absolute biggest. You could have the hat that has the D on the hat, or have the whole thing say doofus. That's how big of a doofus you would be if you implemented a 48 to 52-game season right now, for lack of saying a harsher word, where 64 to 72, like he said, would be around how it has to be now. And then I also saw, when we just got on, Fauci said he would recommend the MLB ending by September, So that's going to be interesting, where even now you would still end by September 27th, like Bowden said, if you had about 64 to 72. So they're just BSing, they're just beating around the bush, and they're just trying to delay the season now, where unfortunately eventually it might get to where you wouldn't want to start a season where these other leagues might be able to come back because they're finishing. But with the virus and everything you hear from Fauci and everybody, you might not want to start by the time they even get to figuring it out, because there's a difference between finishing a season and playing a whole season and going through a playoff. So,
or at a certain point, man, about 4 minutes into your 9-minute rant, it sounded like someone pressed the I'm going to up the speed of how much you talk to 1.25 and then 1.50. And then 1.75. I felt like you were skipping words and syllables, and I got to say it was epic. I love that, man. Good work by you.
Yeah, like I said, I don't normally go off like that.
I loved it.
Well, wait.
That was awesome. Andrew, you were jumping in, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing I want to respond to what Bork just said is the thing about the Cardinals owner saying that baseball isn't very profitable. Well, the two things to shut that down pretty fast, and I heard this once before, is, well, if it's not very profitable, all these players' salaries each season wouldn't be able to keep going up. Like, if top teams like the Cardinals, the Phillies, the Dodgers are able to still pay all these All-Stars, and then the Angels giving Trout that contract, Harper getting his contract, if all these guys are continuing getting paid a ton more a season, your sport's pretty profitable. And if you take the Marlins, for example, their past guy who bought I forget his name, he bought the team for $158.5 million in 2002. When he sold it to Jeter, by the end of it, he was making over $900 million a year. So That's it. So if that's the case, like right there, your team is the sport is very profitable. So I don't want to hear from the owners that they're not making enough money and it's not a profitable sport, because it clearly is in the long run.
Yeah,
Also,
well,
they just signed a
oh,
$1 billion TV deal with Turner.
Right.
Yeah, and that as well. I completely forgot about that.
Which
Yeah, I was
pissed
going
all
to
of
say
us off
another
last year.
analyst tweeted out in response to Middlebrooks that I forgot to say because I was so pissed off. The 30 owners took in 10.7 total in revenue last year. The 1,200 plus players made about $4 billion in total salary. So obviously that debunks also baseball's not. They have to be making some revenue with that big of a gap between players to owners when it's 30 people to 1,200 plus people. So that makes that a ridiculous statement as well.
Well, again, and I mentioned it earlier. If you take a look at just the last 5, 6, 7 years alone, they have gone up by the billions in their individual profits. It's insane what owners make, or owner groups make. Some of them are owned by groups. And Bork, you said, like, you just sell the team. Well, that's going to net your forever profit. When you want to walk away from everything, you sell your team. But most of the guys that are invested in this organization or in baseball right now, or all professional sports, are not really at that point where they're looking to rid themselves of this continuous cash flow. Now, I know it must be so hard to make $850 million a year instead of $950 million a year. I know. That's got to be really fucking difficult. You can't buy your 14th island. But for a year, to continue to fuel the product of your game, to sit there and have to cut minor leaguers, which hurts local profits in all those towns. A lot of minor league towns or minor league teams are in towns that don't have anything else. That is their entertainment, and is their source of revenue. And it's where you sit there and you fuel the dreams of these 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids that come to the ballpark for $3 a night and eat 50-cent hot dogs and watch these guys in seats that they'd never be able to afford and can't drive to. It's any of these major league ballparks, and you give them an up-close look at a dream. And then they keep going with it, and they keep going with it. And now you shut that down and you say, no, I can't dip into 1 year's worth of my revenue or 5 years worth of my revenue. No, I can't pay the guys whom I already sat there and agreed to a freaking contract of which they signed, you signed. This is what you should still be paid. All they have to do is defer that and continue to pay the people what they were already signed in agreement. It's insane what these owners have done. It's insane what Rob Manfred has allowed them to do. And this entire process is just killing a dream of baseball for so many people. And it's ugly. This entire
it's also insane. The fact that they're being so short-sighted about it. Yeah, they're gonna lose a little bit of money this year, but would you rather lose a little bit of money this year and then go back to making what you were making before for years in the future? Or would you rather just, destroy baseball and not have the same amount of profit in the future that you've had in the past?
And this all comes down to the fact that the CBA comes up at the end of 2021 when they all sit there and they take a look at this again and they reevaluate and they try to take back some of the money and power from the players. And at the end of the day, you will never win that battle. These players, you would not have the sport without them. You can't just throw replacement. I'm not going to go out there and play shortstop and have people watch me on TV. It just doesn't work that way. They're doing this in an attempt to sit there and further their profits beyond the already astronomical amounts that they make every single year as owners. And they're trying to take that away from the players. That can't happen. And because they're doing that, just like you guys said, we're not going to have baseball this year. I think that's pretty evident at this point. We're not going to have baseball this year. Next year is what it is. Then you have that another potential lockout year and strike. And how bad do you want to destroy this game? How bad do you want it to get? Because right now you're losing 1 year's worth of profits, which, by the way, the rest of the country's lost the same amount of profit, in percentages. We're all out of work. We're all out of this. Everyone's life changed because this is a global fucking pandemic. You can afford to take the hit. You know why? Because the $8 an hour cashier could afford to do it. Sack up. It's 1 fucking year. Come back and you make it back. You have to invest in the thing that is your long-term nest egg. You are going to lose a little bit of money from time to time, but in the end, you're 100% going to make that back. We just talked about it with Loria and the Marlins, and that's a dog shit franchise. Think about if you're the Yankees. Think about if you're the Cardinals. Think about if you're the Brewers with an up-and-coming team. Andrew, go ahead.
And my thing is, you mentioned the minor league, the whole cutting that's dumb and Manfred in itself, just because I was doing research on like money situation, and while the major leagues might be taking a small attendance hit this last year or two, if you take the overall baseball numbers, the attendance for baseball games as a whole, because of the minor leagues, were actually on an increase. And I found it very interesting. So basically what it was saying is, while people might be going to less major league games and stuff, the TV ratings in major league games are actually going up. And while minor league games are actually saving the sport in a small way as well, because of the amount of minor league teams, and you mentioned it, Shane, for some of those smaller areas, that's all they got. They don't have 4 professional teams to follow. They don't have 3. They don't have 2. They got 1 minor league team to follow. And you're taking that away from them, and you're losing not only the money for that city, but like if they're so worried about losing money for their sport in a whole, I mean, taking away close to 50 minor league teams is not going to solve anything. So that's just another strike in itself for me against Manfred. And then you mentioned the next couple years, and I know next year is going to have to be done, but like, has anyone else thought about like what are we going to get out of these players next year? Like, well, what's their incentive to play like as good as they want? Because like they're still going to get the money, they're going to make the money back, but like with how much the owners and Manfred and everyone else involved clearly don't care about them or the fans as much as they originally thought, I'm already expecting next year, while the season's going on, I expect like there's some decrease in like the overall effort wise. Like I'm already afraid of that to take a hit next year.
So we could take a look at that in our own personal lives. Now, where I work right now, I fucking loathe both of my bosses. One's an idiot, one's an arrogant prick. I don't want to go to work and perform for them. I find that I have to go to work and perform for me because I take pride in what is mine. So it's my own work ethic. I think that there are a lot of guys in baseball or in any job or anywhere that you go that will have that kind of a mindset. They won't sit there and say, for who, for what, Ricky Waters style. They're going to go to work because they take pride in what it is that they do. But there's a whole mess of other people who are going to say, it's a guaranteed fucking contract. You're going to pay me. And I don't care anymore.
That's true. Shane, I was going to say, though, in your opinion, and I know the answer to this, but everybody can answer this. What league do you think makes more money, the WNBA or the MLB?
What?
No. You just see where I'm going. Just
Go ahead. Keep going.
MLB.
Okay, cool. Great. Perfect. Now that we got that out of the way. The MLB owners continue to cry poor. WNBA reporter Madeline Kenny tweets. Meanwhile, the WNBA has committed to paying 100% of its players' salaries through this season. So how in God's creation can the WNBA...
Because they have the NBA's money.
...of payer salaries. But, and then on top of that, the Andrew talked about another sports league. The National Women's Soccer League is actually starting before the MLS. They got it all together. They don't have as much money. They don't have as much resources. And they figured out to start play in June before the MLS is actually starting. It's just that's
Can I bet on that?
So I have no idea. But I'm just saying the NWSL is starting before the MLS. So that's another league that got it together. 2 lesser leagues that got it together in terms of one financially and one in terms to start way before the MLB, which just makes them look 50 times worse because obviously those are lesser known leagues that are ranked below baseball.
Well, again, WNBA gets NBA, and to be fair, I heard that coming. WNBA gets NBA money, and a women's national soccer league that no one knows exists. There isn't as much financially invested in getting that one going as there might be for what could be 7 or 8 team minor league team deep organizations across baseball. It's a different platform, but I understand the argument.
Oh, either way, though, like Andrew said, they're making extra money from the minors, though, because of the attendance upticking. So, yeah, they get...
keep building these beautiful minor league ballparks, and I'll keep coming.
Money. But the WNBA, gets money from the NBA, but the MLB is supposed to get money from the MILB if Rob Manfred wasn't just the biggest dunce on the planet and started cutting programs from the MILB. So that's the big. You're supposed to make money from a secondary source too. You just have an absolute idiot running the top of your league. That's the situation.
Rob, what were you going to say there, man?
I was just going to jump in and say that, I mean, I agree with the basic sentiment of what Borg's getting at there, but I just wanted to point out that the WNBA and that Women's Soccer League, they make a fraction of the money that the baseball players make.
Which is a fucking shame, by the way. I don't, I joke a lot, about a lot of shit that you probably shouldn't joke about, but when you take a look at women in sports, now they don't create as much of a profit as what the core four, men's leagues do in sports. But even still, when you take a look at the profit numbers and what these athletes are paid, that's disgusting. They deserve so much more income than what it is that they're currently being paid. So they damn well better be paid for the whole season. Exactly right, Rob.
Yeah, I haven't really taken a look at that. I have to take a look at what the numbers are in terms of the percentage of the revenue that they make in their salaries compared to the percentage of the revenue that MLB players make in their salaries.
Because it is a fucking shame. You got a lot of young girls who are growing up who, sit there and watch these, the Women's College World Series. I know Stephanie and I watch it every single year, and it's insane. By the way, definitely everyone watch the Women's College World Series for softball.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely amazing. It's what we've been watching on, what is that? TiVo? Not TiVo. What's it called? Fuck, I'm old. Whatever. She
TiVo, that's like early
games.
2000s, man.
Shut the hell up, Rob. We record these games, and we've been watching, highlighted games for the last 3 months because she's going through withdrawal without softball since we should be in the middle of the Women's College World Series at this point. But it's the same principle. You we're taking away the dreams of people, who are watching minor league baseball, just the same as, not funding appropriately and making it a true sustainable career for the women to be an athlete in any particular sport. It's just disgusting. They deserve so much more. They're incredible athletes. I don't know who the hell was about to jump in, by the way, before we started talking about that. Someone was about to say something.
I was just going to say the other thing with the WNBA, and I get Borg's point, but the one thing is, compared to what baseball is trying to put in, the WNBA is only doing, I think it's a 20-game season, so it would be a little easier to pay a full year, like a full salary from 20 games than having to put in 60, 70 games for an entire contract.
Oh, I get that. I wasn't trying to come more from the money stance, just the stance that they don't have as much resources either. You don't think those leagues would get as much resources before the other leagues because, unfortunately, like Shane said, that's just how it works, where they were able to figure it out logistically as well, not just monetary-wise, but just be able to figure it out logistically how to get their leagues back before the MLB. That's a side that also doesn't look good. Forget just money, too, just figuring out it logistic and factual-wise, like this will work, we can put this here, we can do this here. You shouldn't have been able to do all that before the MLB was able to even figure out their money and then that you've also figured out the money side. That's the other side I was getting at. It wasn't just necessarily from a money standpoint.
It's brutal. Biscuit, you have been unusually quiet for now 24 minutes or so since I last heard you speak. Are you just soaking it all in? Have you gotten more angry, more sad? What's going on over there?
Building up his rage over there.
You know what? My anger has really just turned into disappointment at this point. Like I said, I'm just becoming more pessimistic by the day. And I'm just sitting here listening to everything you guys are saying and just diving into every reason why this is such a fuck situation for baseball. And what I'm thinking about the most is how really in Rob Manfred's statements to ESPN and in the MLB statement that came out the other day, I hate the fact that he's making it sound like it's about the fans. This is what we're doing for the fans. In his ESPN statement, he said, it's just a disaster for our game. Absolutely no question about it. It shouldn't be happening, and it's important that we find a way to get past it and get the game back on the field for the benefit of our fans. What a crock of shit. I just feel like we're I just feel like we're a part of, like, we're a bargaining chip. Like, and it's just a way to kind of twist the narrative that by the players really just expecting and wanting to get what they deserve and earn, that they're, taking something away from us, when in reality it's the other way around. The owners are taking something away from the fans, and the players have every right to be fed up about it. So I just hate that this is some narrative that we're a part of, because it's just another part of the convoluted fucking mess. It's sad, and like I said, like I have been taking it all in. I was actually just thinking to myself how quiet I've been, but I really, well, I think I'm just getting to the point, Shane, where it's beyond words. It's sad. It's fucking sad. Not to make it personal or anything, but baseball is such a big part of my fucking life. There have been days, not to get sad or anything, but there have been some rough days where I've came home and all I wanted to do was just watch a fucking game, and the joy it brought me. And I've sat through some long nights through 2012 to 2019 watching the Phillies play. But you know what? Like, win, lose, bad loss, good win. Like, I wouldn't change it like out in a second for like what it is now, because this is just so pathetic. And I'm just, like I said, I can't say it enough. I'm very, very disappointed with how things are being run by Rob Manfred.
And that's exactly where it's at, because there are so many people who rely on sports all across the board, whether it be baseball as it is for us, whether it be soccer, which is coming back, is back for women and will be back shortly for men, whether it's golf that just came back, the NFL that looks on schedule, the NBA that has a plan if the flat earther has nothing else to do with it at this point, the NHL also looking like it's coming back. People rely on these things because, you know what, for a lot of us, this is our turn our brain off and just get to emotionally enjoy something. I don't know how many of you, now I date someone with, obviously I love her, but the amount of times I come home and there is some dog shit TV on. I'm talking 90 Day Fiancé's worth of shit, 48 seasons of America's Next Top Model. And I ask her, I'm like, how can you watch this shit? She goes, I just need something mindless that I can just enjoy that makes me feel good for reasons I can't understand. That's kind of sports for us, right? We get home, we don't know why, because just as Biscuit said there, it may be the worst loss that we've ever witnessed. At the end of the day, it's baseball. We got to watch baseball. We still put 3.5 hours into watching it. And we feel okay about it most of the time. We needed this.
I had a professor who said, sports, the thing I like most about sports is that it builds community. It's a commonality between people. It's something that unites a town, a city, a state. It's just something so unique that draws people together. And that couldn't be anything more, resemblance of the truth. Think about our relationship, doing this show, working, with this wonderful team. Like, what's our common number one thing that we have in common? It's that we all adore and admire this sport that we get so frustrated about and so passionate about, but it draws us together. It gets us to know one another. How many things can you say are like that in this world that can form such strong, unique bonds in between people? There isn't. And like I said, I think, one of the better things that I think's come out of this shutdown, with the sports world being shut down, is that we get to have these conversations and reminisce one another and really talk about our love and appreciation for things of the past, because it's just a stern reminder that not every day is guaranteed, and you got to cherish the moments. And like I said earlier, I watched a lot of shit baseball from 2012 to 2019, and I would take that 5 years ago 20-1 Orioles loss, whatever it was, where Rob McClure waved the white flag and it looked like we were just surrendering. I'd take that game right about now over what this is and this nonsense, because it's just so special. And even that, to me, I would, rather watch than this horseshit show with Rob Manfred.
Yeah, and going off that, you mentioned like just our relationship here, but like that goes with any business. Like I mean, how many times you see a business person special for a day game throughout the season? I know you can't go to the game, but you can still do things like that at work, or like after work, you go meet up with some buddies at a bar or something, and get a drink, still continue to talk work, just like some people do at baseball games in the summer. Like you see people still go in their work clothes and stuff because after the day they just go there, finish talking about whatever, and enjoy the game. I mean, you can, even though you can't go to the actual game, you can still do that over the summer, or still with wherever you're working at. I mean, things are starting to open back up, and again, you would still be able to do that, but they're just taking it away from us. And that was another thing. I don't know if any of you guys, Biscuit, you mentioned Manfred's comments in the ESPN stuff. I don't know if you guys watched the Return to the Season show, or Return to the Season, I think it was called, show last night, where they had all the commissioners on and stuff. And even that, like, I watched that, and baseball did such a poor job on there. I mean, and I'm going to go on the players on this as well, because when you're watching the whole thing, first off, every commissioner was on there live except for Manfred. He had to get his special time and have his interview beforehand. So it was just a recorded interview with him and Greenberg. And then every sport had either a coach or a player on, and then baseball had nothing. Like, it was like every sport's doing what they're trying to do, and that's why I was a little disappointed in the players and I don't know, maybe the MLBPA told them not to say anything because they're going back and forth and most likely eventually go to court with it, so maybe they don't want to say anything bad. But like every sport had something outside just the commissioner except for baseball, and then it went on beyond, and all the commissioners were on there live talking, and Manfred, like, he was non-existent, and it was just so disappointing, and it was just like another blow to like just the whole thing, because like it got leaked before that Manfred wasn't confident in the season after backtracking what he said last week. And here, maybe you're expecting some answers, but that leakage was actually the video they ended up just showing on that show. So, like, it was just such a disappointment as a baseball fan, because even then, it was like, he's probably not going to say anything that important, but, like, maybe you'll get a slight answer here and there, and he didn't even show up for it. So that was another kind of, like, stab.
Yeah, well, I was going to say for me, the biggest stab in the back was when I was also listening to Nick Wright's show, and he was talking about baseball should have been dominating July, whether it was from the 4th of July, which would have been the best case scenario, to do it on that holiday. But you couldn't do that at this point with the timetable. But just sometime in July before sports started, they should have been dominating those few weeks. That's the chance they had to revitalize some people. And they just have no chance to do that now, unless if something drastically changes in the very near future, in order to have a lot of time before the other sports come back to dominate months of July, because they would literally have to agree on something in like the next 3 days. And I don't see them agreeing on something in the next 3 days to start by like the 12th through 15th with stuff, and then start start in by like around the same time other sports are starting, but maybe just shorten the time that they would practice, and they would just tell players to report literally a week from the agreeing on the deal. So like that would be like, and that would be really tough. So like they have not much of a chance of dominating that month anymore. And that's another thing Manfred just screwed up, because you had a whole almost full month before everything came back to take the whole sports picture of the main top 4 sports, at least, to carry that for a period of time, and he completely screwed that up. And if owners are complaining about losing money, that's something they should be mad at him for, because even though you're losing money, you would have made a heck of a lot more money probably coming back on those days and having a lot more viewership when the other stuff's not going on, since it's the crunch time in the postseason.
Yeah, man, all that very, very valid, very true. We're nearing an hour at this point, which is honestly, it's more than I anticipated. I'm glad that we were able to do this. Andrew's is a really good idea to sit here and vent a little bit. We got a bunch of different perspectives in here, but I want to kind of go around and just give like one final thought to each of us on what this whole thing has kind of meant. And Rob, you've been quiet for a little bit, so I'm sure you're stewing on some things. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I was listening to you guys, but I was pulling some numbers here on the internet, and I've come away with the fact that Manfred has been the commissioner of Major League Baseball since 2015. In 2014, the average attendance for a Major League Baseball game was just a touch over 30,000. The 2019 season was a touch over 28,000, and it has steadily declined every season between 2015 when he took over and 2019. So the popularity and the ticket sales for Major League Baseball teams have, as I just said, steadily declined under Rob Manfred, and that just goes to show that he has not done a good job of promoting the sport, marketing the sport. You know, in this certain situation, responding to the coronavirus pandemic and having an opportunity to take advantage of it almost, he hasn't done a good job. So in order for baseball to survive and to thrive once again, I reiterate what I said before. They need a new commissioner.
Yeah, man. I think we're all on that same wave at this point. Every way that he could have messed this thing up, during his tenure, he certainly seems to have done so. Let's go to, I'm going to end with Andrew because you were the one who brought us the topic. Let's go to Bork real quick. Bork, you've been full of some quality rants this evening. What's your final thought on this one?
Well, my final thought was when they started talking about, when I looked at another quote in an article I read off of Score, unfortunately, while Tony Clark, he talked about when Tony Clark was declaring his desire to get back to work, the union's top lawyer was out telling reporters and players, eventually getting back to owners, that they were going to issue, obviously, grievances. Well, no crap. When you're offering the same deal in just different realms of games and stuff, and you're saying, oh, we're going to negotiate, we're going to change things, that's not negotiating. All that is saying, oh, we think these guys are idiots. We think eventually they're going to be absolute dumbasses and just realize this is not the same numbers. Like, that's literally what somebody was saying in the background when they were submitting those offers, because otherwise you can't submit almost identical monetary offers in terms of the percentages they get just per different games. That wouldn't make any logical sense otherwise. And the closing point is Rob Manfred doesn't even know what he's talking about, because how does he say that yesterday, in two different quotes, owners are committed to playing, all of them are committed to playing, and then today you find 6 to 8 owners don't give a rat's ass if they play the season or not. So, like, my closing point is just the dude has no idea what he's talking about. And like Rob said, he should probably step down, because at this point he's destroyed the sport, and he's destroyed it since he stepped in, because the World Baseball Classic was somewhat worth a damn when it first started. Now it's basically obsolete. So,
Jeez.
And don't forget, the World Series trophy is just a piece of metal.
and that comment. Don't even get me started with that.
Oh my
that could be another
God.
Unbelievable.
I forgot about that fuckery.
Well done. Good pull there, Bork. All right, Biscuit, your final thought on this.
God, a fucking piece of metal. Wow. That's our commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. Then this might be on a more selfish note, but I just think of everyone who is going to lose a full season of their prime right now, who could have put up the best numbers of their career this year. Bryce Harper, it's a shame to miss. Mike Trout, Lindor, Alonso, the list just goes on and on. I just feel so bad for these players and not being able to see them with their full potential on display.
Obviously, you feel bad for a Met?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, because it's bigger. It's really bigger than, teams or fans or single player. It's bigger. It's huge. It's something that could promote the demise of the sport. It's just really in a bad place. And to see these guys really just unified, there's such a divide between these players and ownership that a strike is just inevitable, and the sport just might not recover. So I'm just, like I said, I keep going back to one word, and that word is really disappointed. I guess I'm going to start having to teach myself about football because, God only knows when we'll see live baseball again.
Well, Biscuit compares somebody to a Met, or is nice to a Met. That's when you know how mad he is and how generous he's being in other facets of his life at this point.
He's just upset.
Yeah. No, he's disappointed, I think was the word he used. And we know how much worse that is. than being
I'm just very disappointed.
Every time
Yeah.
Biscuit speaks tonight, I've just been slightly lowering the light in this room just to match the emotion of it's just so weird hearing Biscuit speak this way. Gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just it's morbid. You hate to watch it. It's like a slow moving car crash. You just gotta, you just keep looking at it, and it keeps getting worse and worse. And you're sitting on the toilet, and you just want to go on. No, but you're. It's a long day at work. I'm setting the scene here. It's a long day at work. You're sitting on the toilet. You just want to read some good fucking news on Twitter, something positive, and then and here comes Jeff Passan with his nice slicked hair breaking. Oh, Rob Manfred said the season's unlikely, and it's just like, well, fuck. Is anything still sacred in the world? And no,
Certainly not your restroom time.
That's why you take a good book into the bathroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
dude,
go.
I gotta stop. I gotta
Fecal
stop
fingers on the
thing.
pages.
Yeah, it's not that much better. You got to get one of those sanitizing things I have for your phone that clean it up with the lights and crap, and then you'll be fine. Put it in that crap after the bathroom, you're all set.
Oh, you are a prepared individual. Damn.
Now there's a guy who makes fantasy trades while he's taking a shit.
There it is. All right, Andrew, what's your final thoughts on this topic? You're the one who brought it to us tonight.
I'd say two quick things. Go back to my opening with the whole down in sports this past week. Don't forget that Joshua Harris wants to buy the Mets. That's another stab in the back. And then after the 2019 Eagles season was depleted by injuries, Brandon Brooks is already out for the 2020 season. So that was even just more crushing to the week already. But in terms of this, I would say baseball, the MLB themselves is clearly scared. I think them pulling back on the deal clearly shows it because they know they're going to get the grievance. They were not ready for the league to say, tell us when and where. That completely took them by surprise, and that kind of changed the whole outlook of this. And good for the players to do that because, again, it shows I think this is the biggest issue. If Manfred really wants to fix things as quickly as possible, stop making everything public. Go indoors and just get it done between the two sides. Actually sit in a room. And this is another frustrating thing from the ESPN thing last night in the video he said. Greenberg asked him, when was the last time you guys talked? And he said they haven't talked person to person in over a week and a half now, and they've had some phone calls here and there. Outside of that, it's basically been whatever letters we're seeing and all that. So that was another, that just shows how far apart these two sides are. The players hate how public it's become, and rightfully so. And I think that's a step in the right direction to fix it, is make it private. Find a way to do it between the two sides in private. Get in a room and find a way to just hash it out. And I think that's the last hope of it. But I put it on Twitter yesterday, 199 days till 2021, and that's the countdown.
Oh, God.
But thank you guys for letting me do this. This actually feels really good.
Therapeutic, isn't it?
That was the goal. Hopefully the listeners feel so or feel similar in that particular respect. My final thought on the whole thing, I'm going to take a bit of one from Biscuit here too, and go a little personal. Again, I mentioned that most of you guys on the show, for the most part, know a little bit about me outside of this personality on this show. But for the listeners, you guys just know what's on the show, which is not 100% who I am. But one small thing about me is the fact that the person who was probably most important to me in my life was my grandmother. She was the person who got me really, really into baseball and really into the Phillies. And I don't know that there was a single time. I have no idea how the hell this woman, they lived in this tiny little apartment, but how this woman had as much Phillies memorabilia over the decades and decades and decades of her fandom. Every time I went over there as a kid, it was a different baseball card. It was a different baseball shirt. It was a different pennant from a different era with a different story. Everything that we shared, her and I, was about the Philadelphia Phillies and baseball. And that became part of my identity. I then began playing baseball, and I played on 3, 4, 5, 6 teams a year. It's what I went to school to go do. I wasn't worried about the classroom. I was worried about getting between the lines. I was worried about that mission on every single day and what that meant to me. And when I couldn't play anymore because I tore up my knees so damn bad trying to come back too soon every single time, I started passing on the things that she taught me and the stories that she taught me. And I started teaching kids how to do it. And I coached for 10 years. And then I got a much better surgeon than the first time. And I fixed my knees. And guess what? I'm playing again. This is my identity. When someone looks at me and someone finds out who I am, who is Shane Mead, I'm a baseball player. I may not be a professional baseball player, but at the end of the day, this is who I am. This is exactly how I identify. These are the things that make me happiest in life. If you want to get me talking about good things, you talk about baseball. You talk about my grandmother. You talk about the things that helped shape me, the human being. Baseball's actively looking to take away stories like that every single day. By every single day that this thing goes on and on and on. I beg of you, Rob Manfred, who's never going to listen to this podcast, don't take away stories like that one. Don't take away quality poops like Biscuit is trying to have in the restroom. Give us that back. Figure this thing out. Figure it out for the players, even the Mets. Figure it out for every goddamn one of them. Figure it out for kids like me growing up and adults like me who want to hang on to the kid from before. Last and final thought on this thing tonight is, you know who else would love to talk baseball with you? Asian Rob. Asian Rob will go on an event not so dissimilar from the one that we have gone on tonight, and he'll talk for hours. It's Just Food, 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. At this point, you could stop over at either one of his locations. You could talk to him or his brother, other Asian Rob. Somehow forget his name at this moment. Talk baseball. Talk anything. They're great people. They want to sit there. They want to get to know you. They want to get to know the listeners of Chasing the Pennant podcast. They also want to get to know the rest of the hosts, by the way. So when you're local into the area, give me a shout. We'll take a ride over and I'll introduce you. But definitely enjoy some food, enjoy some dinner, and go watch an old baseball game. The archives are everywhere. You can find them. You can purchase them, and share a story. If you have kids, share a story with your kids. If you haven't seen your parents in a while, you haven't seen your grandparents in a while, take this over. Get a game, take it over, share a story. Remember baseball the way that it used to be and hope for the God that it can come back the same way. Asian Rob will do that for you too. It's 215-794-FOOD. Treat yourself. Take it home. All right, guys, this has been it's been fun. It's been frustrating, but it's been fun on this particular episode. I'm glad we were able to get an additional one out this week, especially after the last couple of weeks of some spotty coverage by us. So we do apologize. But we're going to send this one out to the Jackdaws, with whom you should also continue to support in any way that you possibly can. Their lives are getting incredibly and increasingly difficult by the day as this coronavirus continues to still at parts wreak havoc on the way that we live our day-to-day lives. It's www.jackdaws.com if you want to support them in any particular way. Great human beings, great music. So I'm going to send this one off to them. Andrew, Rob, Joe, and Biscuit, thank you guys for joining me on this one. This is Chasing the Pennant podcast of the Always Next Year podcast network. See you guys later in the week.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky souls still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.